Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 23W project. My name is Ange Drake, and welcome back to the return or the relaunch of this podcast. This is the first episode back in quite some time. In fact, this is the first podcast back in over 2 years. Now, 2 years is a long time. When I sat down at the start of the year, returning back to this podcast, actually even before the start of this year, jumping on and returning back to this podcast was this little thing that was just tinkering away in the back of my mind. This little voice that said, "Hey, Ange, what about the podcast? When are you going to jump on and record your next podcast?" And honestly, this has been something that has been in my head over the last couple of years, nonstop, because I set myself a business goal to record one podcast a month. And then life blew up. Life literally took off. And I wanted to jump on here and relaunch this podcast in a really beautiful way. This is not designed to be hey, we are back, because to be honest, we've only just been growing and we really haven't gone anywhere. But I do want to fill you in on where we've been. I want to talk to you a little bit on some of the lessons I've learned in the industry over the last couple of years, as well as talking to you about where I see this podcast going in the future. So maybe let's just start off with, well, where have we been? What have we been up to? So the first reason is, why did we stop podcasting? Well, let me take you back. So a couple of years ago, we came to the end of a very significant renovation on our property. We actually moved out of our property for about 18 months while the house was getting pulled apart, put back together. It went over time and budget. And it was a really big life accomplishment to renovate a home for our young family. At that point in time, I believe Sienna was like 2.5, 3. So we were definitely in the throes of what it meant to have a young family, as well as navigating a big build. We got back into our home and it didn't take long before I started to have itchy feet. I had been toying with the idea of opening up a second location for some time. And when I say toying, that kind of makes it seem like it wasn't really a big deal. It actually was. A lot of time and energy at that point in time was being consumed by me going out, visiting locations, re-looking over our business plan, re-looking over our systems, re-looking over our team and our capacity, and really working out whether or not opening a second location was something that was going to be viable for us. But in my heart of hearts, it was something that I knew I really wanted to do. And so when the Essendon location came along at 898 Mount Alexander Road, a beautiful studio that already had an absolutely incredible community that was training with it, a beautiful team, the opportunity was just too good to pass up. So we took over the keys in October 2024. And we had a pretty tight timeline to change the business over to 23W so that it was offering our core product, which is our Group Strong program, the ability to offer personal training, an all-encompassing space for our members to be coming to. 23W Essendon and 23W Preston, they are mirror images of each other. It's the same program, the same systems. We have team that goes across. It's been an absolutely beautiful journey to be part of the growth of a fitness business when you kind of know what to expect. I guess, like I say that, and I guess I want to give it a little bit of context. When I opened up 23W Press, I really didn't have a clue what it took to run a business. A lot of it I've been learning along the way. I didn't know how to manage a team. A lot of it has been trial and error. So when it came to opening up Essendon, a lot of the decisions are very purposeful. They're very much fact-based. I know how to make better decisions in a business. I know how to have better conversations. I know how to better look after profit and loss so that, you're able to be investing capital back into the business. All of those things. It's like being a second-time mum. Opening up a second location is like, it's like your do-over. It's a chance for you to think about all the things that possibly you didn't really think about in your first and improve and make them better in your second. And you can really sit back and, I guess, enjoy the process. And when I say sit back, I don't mean that like literally. I've definitely not been sitting back at all. But at the same time, I think you do put a lot more trust in the process, a lot more trust in the team. I think you are better calculated with making sure that you've got the right people in the right places. So we opened up a second location. And opening up a second location it's a big step, because you want to make sure that your first baby isn't suffering, or like it's not to the detriment of your first baby. So we've really been making sure that we've been very mindful about the growth and about managing that growth, and slowly implementing new things over at our new location, to be making it so that our secret sauce, the thing that makes 23W so great, the thing that the members really love and enjoy, that they also feel it at the Essendon location. So it's been a really fun process to be part of. So alongside obviously having two locations means a much bigger team. It means spreading myself a lot thinner. It means making myself more available. Unfortunately, it's also meant a slight change in my role. So less available to maybe be on the floor and coaching, even though that is something that it still to this day just brings me so much joy when I'm working one-on-one with a client or a member, or coaching a really energized group session. It really is what makes my heart sing. But anyone that is a manager or owns a business, as you guys know, the thing that you love to do, it might be the thing that you only get to do maybe 20, 30, 40% of your time. And then the rest of the time is taken up with the other things that allows you to be able to access your passion. And if you're only ever doing what you're really, truly passionate about, would you really be that passionate about because you're doing it all the time? Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But going back to what we've been up to, business growth, business expansion, scaling, and being able to replicate 23 has been the absolute number one priority. So finding time to necessarily jump on and record a podcast hasn't necessarily been the priority. But now that we are at a certain place, returning back to our podcast, I still truly believe that it is one of the best ways to be getting information out to our members that they can readily access, they can readily digest, whether they're going out for a walk or, cooking dinner or driving in the car. Jumping on and listening to a podcast is always going to be just such a great way to access the same information. So it allows our educational systems to be able to get shared across both studios. And 23, when we talk about our ethos, wellness, wisdom, wonder, that sharing of wisdom is just such an important part of what 23 is about. And then we look at motherhood. So something else big has happened in the last 2 years. I've in fact had another baby Stevie, which brings our total baby tally to 3. And Stevie wasn't necessarily planned, but she is meant to be here. I truly believe that she was life's little blessing, and she was the gift that I think our family didn't know that we needed, but has arrived, and she's everything we hoped she would be and more. She's just such a beautiful energy. She reminds us to slow down. She reminds us to be present, but she has in fact put me back into newborn phase. And honestly, when I had her and when she was only a couple of weeks old, I was like, Ange, this is the perfect time for you to get, set up the camera, pop on the mic and record and relaunch the podcast. And I had intentions of doing this when she was a couple of months old. As the business owner, there were just other areas, other priorities that needed my attention before necessarily coming on and recording. But I am hoping that part of this podcast, I will go back to some of those ideas that I wrote down in the early days that I was hoping to jump on and share. Especially these might be things that I know that new mothers would really resonate in hearing, in terms of returning back to exercise, in terms of navigating those first few weeks and what it means to be a mom that maybe also is career focused and driven as well. So alongside having Stevie, our eldest has also started school, which has been super fun, but obviously a big transition for a family in terms of the pickups, the drop-offs, and just navigating a new schedule as well. So needless to say, a lot has happened. And this is alongside both my husband and I both run our own businesses. So his business is absolutely taking off. And so it's a bit of a push and pull when it comes to any family dynamic as to how you make it work within your little ecosystem. And we don't really necessarily have family here in Melbourne that's here to help us out. So we have to be making sure that the things that we're doing within our life, within our businesses, are things that we can sustain. So I guess like this is actually a really good segue into going into, well, what have I learnt in the last couple of years after coaching literally hundreds of women, that might be sort of ideas that have been resonating and popping into my head time and time again. So one of the biggest things is I used to think that intensity solved most problems. And now, honestly, instead of thinking that, you go hard, you go fast, you throw everything in, I've obviously realized that recovery, structure, and consistency really solves more. There is a point in your life where you can throw intensity at something. You can really put in 100%. And I guess I think back to early days when before I started 20 Preston, I was doing everything. I was working all the time. If there was a problem, there was very little that hard work couldn't solve it. Now, as a mum of three and as somebody who's got priorities in lots of different buckets, I now realize that it's consistency and structure that really wins the race. It's about holding yourself accountable and knowing that there is just simply not the time in a day to get everything done. But learning how to prioritize what is the most important thing and consistently ticking through those priorities is where you win. And whether that's talking about, say, a career goal or whether that's talking about a fitness goal, really the two things are the same. It's about consistency and structure over a long period of time rather than necessarily thinking that it's an all-out assault. So this brings me to number one. Most women aren't failing because of a lack of effort. Most women are often overextending themselves. They're focusing on their careers, their parenting, their mental load, about being a good friend. Some of them are caregivers. They might be under eating or under fueling themselves. They might be underslept, overstressed. So doing more isn't necessarily going to be the thing that's going to help you make the breakthrough. In fact, it is the opposite. The issue isn't that they're not working hard enough. It's usually because it's either inconsistent, lacks structure, poor recovery, or unstable routines. Better systems, when you put them into your week, helps to remove decision fatigue. And so for women, looking at the pain points in your week of when you see things like inconsistency, a lack of structure, poor recovery, and unstable routines, look at where those things pop up for you. And I can guarantee they're popping up time and time again. And they're bringing everything undone. And that's what's creating that start again mentality. So when you work on improving better systems, we're talking about things like booking in your training and making sure that multiple people actually see that in your calendar, like whether it's your partner or the people that help look after your kids, or, making sure that it's considered in the context of what your normal week looks like. Setting realistic nutrition habits. So, realistic nutrition habits is unlikely to be counting calories. It's more likely to be habit-based approach, where you're looking at small habits done over a longer period of time that are repeated. Having go-to meals and keeping it simple. So having a couple of meals that you just eat on repeat, or things that you can pull out of the freezer. It's about having support and accountability. So both of those things need to work together. And it's about having a backup when you have hard weeks. So it might be like, for example, one of my habits is that once a month I will lock down and I'll do 2 to 3 hours of cooking, and I stock up the fridge with ready-made meals. And I know that those meals, when I've had a busy day, they are my backup, they are my go-to that I can just pull out. And all of a sudden, what might look like a very stressful end of the day where I've got 3 kids all screaming at me, all wanting something, all wanting a bit of attention, that I can manage and I can get through and I can be somewhat regulated. And I'm going to talk about being regulated in a second, but consistency becomes so much easier when there are fewer decisions that rely on motivation. Which brings me to number 2, the problem with all or nothing fitness culture. And I know that this, all or nothing, this is something that gets thrown around all the time, but it can never hurt, guys. It can never hurt for me to go over this again, because I still have conversations with women who say and question, I can only do this. Is it really worthwhile? And they think they're not on track, then they definitely must be off track. One missed workout or a takeaway meal doesn't mean that you've blown it. Doesn't mean that you are setting up a pathway, a mindset that creates that quit cycle and then repeating and restarting again tomorrow or Monday. Extreme approaches disconnects women from what their bodies are actually telling you. And over the last couple of years, I'm so proud of the way in which I can really tune into my body. And as soon as I start to think, "Oh, I should be doing this," and I feel like I need to be pushing myself harder, I stop and I catch myself and go, "Ange, just because you push yourself down this direction, if you are not feeling it, don't be scared to have an extra rest day, slow things down, clear the mental load, back things off. Realize when you're getting to a point where you feel like you actually are, in fact, overcommitting and overdoing it." And I think when we have little kids, we are so guilty of doing this. And then we end up putting all these other priorities in front of our own. And we think we are doing a service to those around us, but in fact, we are not, because as mothers, so much hinges on us being that stable person in the family. And when we become dysregulated, so do our kids. So if this is you, there is that constant restriction. There's constant, thinking about workouts as being punishment or detoxes or earning food. It really teaches you to distrust your body. So learning how to tune in and think about sustainable health, the sustainable, healthy life that you want to live. And that might be eating enough protein, walking enough, getting in regular strength training, whether that's once, twice, 3 times a week, a decent sleep routine, more balanced meals. It's really not about being perfect here. It's about having good enough habits, and good enough habits gets results. I can definitely testify to that. You do not need to be perfect. Over the last 7 months, I think I've lost somewhere around 8 kilos. And no, it's not about weight loss and it's not about the aesthetics, but I have not been perfect. I have definitely taken the good enough approach of just thinking about my meals and seeing how I could make them just a little bit better, or maybe, focusing in on my training or my movement and going, okay, how can I try and bring a little bit more intention behind what I'm doing? So you don't need to have everything dialed in to get results. You just have to have enough of the momentum moving in the right direction. Let's jump into number 3. And what actually creates long-term results. So again, these are lessons that I've learned or really just been reinforced over the last couple of years, is that repetition or simple behaviors. We're talking about not hacks, not challenges, not relying on motivation. We're talking about things that actually matter. So, setting yourself a minimal amount of time, a minimal frequency of training. So it could be, okay, committing to 3 to 4 strength trainings a week. And it doesn't have to be 60 minutes. They can be 40 minutes, which is kind of like the duration that I usually run my sessions for. And if I'm really pushed for time, you bet I could definitely get them done quicker. Eating enough protein. It's about meal structure, sleeping consistently. And then the second part of this, when it comes to getting long-term sustainable results, is that shift and change that has to happen with your identity and the way in which you see yourself. So women who keep results stop seeing themselves as someone who is trying to lose weight, and they start to see themselves as someone who is losing weight, or somebody who can lose weight, or somebody who is transforming. Such a power in believing that you are becoming that person that you want to be, that you are that person. Because the second you start to think, I'm trying to be that person, it gives you an out. So often when I am weighing up, I might be tired and I might be going, oh, I really can't be bothered going for a walk or walking to get the kids. I prefer to drive. I go, okay, well, I am someone who is fit and active and healthy, or I am someone who likes to walk and pick up the kids and leads an active, healthy lifestyle. I am that person. I am someone who likes to train. I am someone who prioritizes their health and fitness. There is such power in that, because it does help you find that discipline you need to do the thing. And sometimes doing the thing isn't really even that hard once it's all said and done and dusted, and you forget about it, but you've done it. And I think that that those small little chunks, those small little wins is what builds discipline, and that's what in turn will build motivation. So results come from surviving difficult seasons. And a lot of people sit there and they wait for the perfect time to either to scale their training or to get the results. And they're like, oh, I can't do this because I've got all these social events on, or I work's busy. And they quit when things do go through those stressful periods. So it's really about learning how to adapt in times where you might be time crunched and going, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Time is going to go regardless. And they return quickly after setbacks, and they stop quitting when things might get tough. Instead, they look for other ways that they might be able to change and adapt to make their training and their health and nutrition fit into whatever's going on for them and their lifestyle. Number 4 is that community matters more than motivation. As I've seen 23W grow, I've also seen the community shift and change as well. And motivation is a funny little one. You know, motivation it's just so unreliable. Nobody feels motivated forever. And community helps women continue to show up when life is hard, when confidence is low, when stress is high. And belonging and that sense of belonging, I think, has the power to change behavior. Women are more likely to stay consistent when they know people are expecting them, when they feel safe, when they feel seen, when they enjoy the environment. So many women still, unfortunately, feel very much intimidated by traditional gym spaces where they might feel judged or behind or embarrassed or unsure. And a strong community where women are feeling empowered, seen, challenged, supported, I think also helps to lower the barrier for participation. And from growing from 1 to 2 studios, this is something that we've done a lot of work on this year, and I think will continue to really be embedded into the culture of 23W because it does form so much of our secret sauce. And the reason why so many women will choose to train with us is because of the results, of the connection, the value that they're getting, and that sense of belonging and community piece. And I guess over the last couple of years, as I've become a mum and my friends have have moved to different like suburbs, and it becomes more challenging to necessarily catch up with some of your friends, you end up spending so much time with the people that you go to the gym with. And it's so beautiful, especially when you are back in the trenches with a young family, that you can have that social connection with women who are in the same phase of life as you. And I really enjoy it. And look, I would say that I'm not necessarily the most outgoing person. I can be sometimes a little bit of an introvert when it comes to socializing, which probably surprises some people. But I know that when I go into 23W and I'm there training alongside people, I can chat. I can talk about some of the trials and tribulations of what motherhood has thrown at me for that week. And it's just such a release to be able to know that other people are in the same place of life and that they are also going through the same challenges. It's just such a beautiful thing. And I think over the last couple of years, that whole idea has just really become so much more of a significant piece for me. And I just feel so blessed that we have 23 and that I am also part of that community in a really rich and beautiful way as well. And then lastly, I want to talk about what's changed in my philosophy over the last couple of years. So look, I got into the health and fitness industry because I love sport. And then I took a huge deep dive in kind of 2016. That was kind of like my bodybuilding era. And a lot of my programming and the way in which I worked out was very much a bodybuilding approach, which was great and fun in your 20s, high volume. But I guess like what I've learned over the last couple of years is that health is more about regulation than intensity. So I've used this word intensity a few times today. And what you've once prioritized, so like the idea of pushing harder and more output and more intensity and trying to squeeze more things into your week. Can my body actually recover well from the things that I'm doing? How regulated is my nervous system? It's just so mind-blowing understanding how nervous system health interplays with your body's ability to recover, as well as the foods that you pick in your sleep and just your overall sense of well-being. It just plays such an important role. And then, what is actually sustainable for me? So there was once a time where I'd be like, okay, what else can I squeeze into my week? I'm often there going, well, when it comes to running, like, can I sustainably add this one run in a week? Can this be something I do regularly? Or if this is just a once off, like I'm going to go to the track and do these sprints as a once off, well, where's the value add there? I'll just be going into this huge amount of load as a once off exposure, once off stimulus to this training stress, that then I expect my body to adapt. And then what? I'm not going to repeat that same stressor again and allow my body to carefully build? Or am I doing it just to be like this sudden, like, wham, bam, here's this huge amount of stress that I'm expecting my body to recover from? I know that this sounds wild to say, but I know that I'm not the only woman that has thought this. It's just like, you got to add this like huge random thing into your week. But, can you recover from it? Can you grow from it? Can you get stronger from it? And if you're looking at something where you were getting a training response, then it's training. It's not a test. You're not trying to test your body's ability to, say, run for a certain amount of time. And, if you get to that, you get this gold sticker. So it's clearly not how it works. So, can I make that new thing that I'm adding to my week sustainable? Can I do it on a regular basis? If I can't do it on a regular basis, then I do end up questioning, like, is this worthwhile adding in? And I guess this is especially true after pregnancies, business growth. You've already got so much competing demands of time that I think anything that is in my week is very carefully curated to have a place within my week, and it's got to have a purpose and it's got to have a value add. And the goal isn't just fat loss, it's longevity, which has always been a big philosophy for me. But I guess, like, as I have gone into my 40th year, I definitely, the lens has definitely narrowed down to making sure I'm rebuilding muscle, I'm supporting my hormones, I'm doing more mobility work, I'm doing more work where the body is feeling very connected, athletic and powerful. So I spoke a little bit about how, my style of training when I first started in the fitness industry was very much bodybuilding focused, and it is just not now. And again, this is something I'll probably talk about in other podcasts, but the quality of life, aging well, coaching is also more human than I once realized. And programming, yes, good programming matters. And God, I love programming. It's like the best thing ever. But, understanding someone's emotional capacity, their stress, their identity, what's going on for them in their life, and just really connecting with them is something that, as a coach, I just love. It's just so beautiful to be able to know that there's that human element, and that especially in a world of AI, right, that AI will never replace human connection. A fitness coach will always have this really beautiful place in someone's life because you're watching someone move through space, you're hearing their stories, and you play such a powerful role in the way in which they're living their life now, but also into the... So I feel like I've spoken a lot here today, and I'm really hoping that you're still listening. But also I wanted to, I guess, talk about how I see this podcast changing from the format that it was, where it was very much fitness related, and into something that I think is what women want. Women want and they need their strength training, they need their mobility, they need their protein, they need their regulation, they need their community, they need realistic expectations, they need long-term thinking. And so when I think about what this podcast could mean in the next year or so, I really hope that future episodes will really engage women across the lifespan. So I'm hoping, in terms of what's coming up and what's next, is I'm talking, jumping in and talking about perimenopause and menopause, nutrition myths, postpartum, business growth and scaling. And that could be definitely something that I think some people would really get a lot out of, whether or not you have your own business or whether you are in a role and a role at work where you are leading team, all things lifting, all things hormones, member stories, expert interviews is always going to be something that I absolutely love to do, because I just think it brings so much value to those that are listening to these podcasts, especially our 23W members. So I'm hoping you guys are as excited as I am about what is next for the 23W project. I've already got a list of people already lined up for our expert panel. So please make sure that you hit subscribe, you share this podcast with a friend, and I can't wait to be jumping on the mic, hopefully on a regular basis, to be sharing episodes. And of course, if you have an idea for me, please jump into my DMs, shoot me an email, and I will do my absolute very best to be answering any questions that you guys have. Until then, thank you so much for listening. I'm excited to be doing this, and I can't wait to be speaking to you very, very soon.